I am Olly Alexander, and I'm playing Ritchie Tozer. Okay, Ritchie Tozer. He's born in the Isle of Wight. He's the family golden boy. He's smart, he's bright, confident, loves to be the center of attention, loves to make people laugh, wants to look good, sleep with all the guys, live life to the fullest as possible. He's got big dreams of being an actor, and he's someone that always dreams really, really big. Boys is about a group of people growing up and figuring out who they are and the choices they make and the people they love and the places they come from, the families they have, and how that all kind of like adds together to try and to make you find out who you are. And it's set against the backdrop of the decade of the 80s and the result of the AIDS crisis and how that impacts this group of people. I think Boys is an important story to tell because it depicts a time in history that I know firsthand as a gay man is just laced with a lot of trauma and shame and confusion. And so when I read the script as a gay man, I really immediately related to the fear that the characters go through, the confusion, the struggle to find your own identity. And we can't really understate the impact that the AIDS crisis had on millions of people. And I think there's a real willingness to hide the shame and the trauma from the past because it's painful, but we have to remember what happened and try our best to understand what happened and honor the people we lost and honor the people that spent their lives caring for these people and loving these people. And so I think that those are reasons why it's important, but it's also, you know, it's a story ultimately about who you are and struggling to find yourself and the people that you love. And that's really a story that everybody, I think, relates to and can relate to. But one of the biggest things is, what's really touching for me about the story is how in such huge struggles and heartbreak and pain and trauma, out of that comes like the most beautiful strength. And one of the things that really stayed with me after I read the story was how the most difficult times in our lives and the most painful moments and the most heartbreaking moments can create the most beautiful and lasting relationships. And the strength and the bravery and just the humanity of the people in this story, I think reflects really well on what it was really like for people. I think that will never not be an important thing to recognize. There were various different reactions to what was happening, and I think it's impossible to understate the amount of fear and confusion when people first started hearing about this illness, this mystery illness, because nobody knew where it came from, nobody really knew what it was or what it was going to do to people. And the nature of how people would get sick was so different to, you know, so all these people were getting sick, but in different ways, and there wasn't provision for medical staff to understand what was going on or to care for the people that were getting sick because nobody knew what was going on. And the problem was that for the right information to reach the right people took so long. Even still to this day, there's so much stigma around HIV and people don't fully understand what it means to live with HIV now, that you can live a completely healthy and happy life living with HIV. I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways trying to understand what it was like in the 80s was just this total confusion and people not understanding why so-and-so had disappeared or so-and-so had gone home for good. And that created, I think, this atmosphere of terror. That coupled with a lot of homophobic and bigoted views from right at the top of the government to the media to the way gay people were treated in public life. People didn't want to go near them. It's genuinely shocking to think this happened not that long ago. One thing I think is interesting is, you know, relating it back to what happens in the story is when we first hear about this new disease or this illness that's spreading, like there's this huge amount of disinformation and gossip and rumors, and you know, in the story, like everyone's very, very confused and doesn't know what this illness is, where it's come from, and that's what happened at the time. You know, there's just a lot of misinformation and confusion and people saying different things. And you know, nowadays we have so much information at our fingertips, but there's still such a huge problem with misinformation, you know what I mean? So I found that interesting, actually, how there was a kind of parallel between those two things, but even though technology has changed it so much. It was really interesting to talk to Russell about his experience in the 80s and what it was like for him and his friends, and a lot of that has gone into the script. Russell would always tell me to just go back to the script. You know, if I had a question about something, he'd be like, it's there, it's all there. You know, say the lines, which is a really good piece of advice. And we had a week of rehearsal before we started shooting where we kind of got to pick his brains about, it's obviously harder for us in the cast. We didn't experience the 80s, you know, so we've had to really kind of try and tune into how things were. So much has happened in the decade since the 80s for the LGBTQ community, and I think largely positively we can say there's been such huge strides in terms of equality and progression of rights, and you know, at least in this country we could pretty much say that LGBT people are protected in our rights, and they've been hard fought for over many, many years, and I still think we're lagging behind in terms of protection for trans people. It's a different world now. Like, the visibility of queer people in the media has exploded, and we're seeing so many queer people who are speaking on their own experience, and we have more shows on TV that are about queer people, made by queer people, films, books, and I think it's made its way into mainstream culture in many ways. But the lives of LGBT people are still, you know, they're so varied around the world. So it really depends on who you are and where you come from. But the main sort of takeaway that I found really in the past few years, I suppose, in just my life as Olly, but doing research into the communities in the UK and around the world, you know, I travel a lot with my band, is how much people still suffer for who they are and who are still discriminated against or worse, or persecuted for just being themselves. And that's really the reality for so many people still. And you know, whilst we've made so many amazing strides and steps forward, there's still so much to be done. Best thing about Boys, well, I think honestly meeting everybody and getting to work with everybody, the cast, like, we all love each other, the crew have been so amazing. It's been like a real amazing group of people to make something that has been pretty tough at times, like on everybody, not just the cast. It's been tough across everyone, and everyone's worked so hard, and that to me is like the best thing, you know, how and it's amazing the TV shows get made. You just think, God, everyone has to do so much, and so many things have to go all together at the right time, and just being a part of it, and something that I really, really, really believe is such an incredible story. As soon as I heard that Russell T Davies was making a new show, I was instantly interested, because I think Russell's amazing, and his work has really had a huge impact on my life as Olly. Queer as Folk, you know, I watched that when I was 14 years old in secret, and it had a really big impact on who I am. And so I was like, oh yeah, that sounds amazing, can't wait to read it. And then as soon as I did, I was like, wow, this is really brilliant, and I would love to be a part of it. You know, it was a no-brainer. I find like Russell has like an endless amount of energy. Also, he responds to a text message any time of the day or night, no matter what. I had all these questions about the script, and I didn't really know whether he would be approachable or whether it was sort of like, now he's written it, it's, you know, don't talk to me, but he's really, really involved and wants to answer all your questions and wants to talk about the story and the characters. And Peter, our lovely director, has been, he said to me at the very start of the shoot, he was like, it's my job to be upbeat and positive. And I was like, okay, you say that now, but will you still be upbeat and positive 10 weeks in? And by and large, he has been. He's very good at motivating people and staying kind of enthusiastic and upbeat, which has been incredible, really, because there have been times where we felt, you know, really low, or just like, you know, hard to kind of, you just don't know what you're feeling. And Peter's been there to kind of be like, it's all good, you're doing good, and keep everyone's spirits up. So yeah, he's been great.